You're watching AM Live Leadership Forum here. And of course, today we turn our focus on detribalizing Kenya and of course fostering cohesion. We know tribalism in Kenya is indeed a major stumbling block to democracy as well as socio-economic development. It persists since it provides an avenue via which state goodies and favors trickles down from those in power to their tribesmen. Therefore, loyalty to tribe is given ever greater relevance than loyalty to the country. Tribalism is responsible for a lot of ills such as underdevelopment, corruption, rigging of elections, and violence. There is also no meritocracy, as people are given jobs based on tribe regardless of having low qualifications. Hence, the inefficient use of available skills. The exploitation of natural resources also takes a tribal angle, with resources in some areas being ignored or being underutilized. Bad governance and lack of accountability is also linked to tribalism, as people will never question a government run by their tribesmen. Even if it makes mistakes, they remain supportive of it, firmly and blindly. The reverse is also true. This means that even if a government does well, it will receive daily unnecessary criticism from the tribes not in the ruling party. Tribalism is thus used to withhold or provide preferential services and resources. This is Leadership Forum. And of course, we would like to hear from you. You can head over to our Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. Also, a profile name on Facebook is AM Live NTV. Our SMS number remained to be 2505. And of course, we want to hear from you this morning. How are you getting affected by tribalism, right? And how can we lance this boil of tribalism in this country? Is tribalism good, or it bodes not well for this particular country? So we want to hear from you. Also, our numbers will be up momentarily to give you a chance to call in, ask questions, or share your contribution. So we want to introduce our panelists who are here this morning to take us through this particular session this morning on the Leadership Forum. And I'm happy to introduce to you Cabinet Secretary Professor Margaret Kobia from the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender. We do have with us as well Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa from Devolution. And of course, we want to hear what they have to tell us about what they're doing within their various dockets when it comes to, stanching, the boil of corruption, stanching the boil of also tribalism. So since we got this good constitution that we touted to be very progressive, have we entrenched tribalism within the counties? Did devolution brought the aspect, or maybe also putting the cake of tribalism down deep in the bakery when it comes to making sure that people are given the jobs within the counties? We've had different also counties saying, oh, no, we are meeting the court of this particular county as codified within the constitution. This is a clarity that we need to take it from our panelists this morning. So let's just dive into it this morning, and looking also at the dailies. I think that is a good place to begin. The standard shame of jobless Kenya. I think these are things that we can actually talk about before we drill deeper to tribalism. And we can begin with you, Professor Margaret Kobia. The shame of Kenya, tough times. This is from the Kenya Household Survey, showing that a third of households lives in abject poverty in this country, with Turkana, Mandera, Samburu, and Garissa listed as the poorest counties. What is your take when you see this?
Thank you, Debarl. I think the plight of Kenyans living in the poverty line, that is living maybe below $1 a day.
Yes.
At that, what this data tells us is we really live in an equal country, where you find maybe in Nairobi the poverty rates, maybe central, but more northeastern, which has continued to suffer from lack of resources for one reason or the other, maybe because of the advanced weather conditions. So I think that the data is true, that is trying to show how unequal in terms of resources this country can be. But I think with the devolution now, where resources are being taken to every county, it's an effort that should be able to change that kind of a situation.
And this really falls smack dab in the middle of your docket, where you have youth, you have gender, who are really adversely affected by this. They're saying this is a ticking time bomb. So in light of all this revelation and the baseline survey, then what will be your immediate reaction?
I think my immediate reaction is to take this as a baseline. This is where we are, and per county, and then be able to see what deliberate efforts need to be put in place, especially for the youth, giving them employment opportunity. But I don't think it's only giving them employment opportunity. We have to understand it deeper. What is making youth not have jobs? So the whole issue of job creation and the whole issue of government being able to create an environment where the youth can get jobs, I think is very important. We also need to look at the youth themselves. Why are they not getting jobs? Do they have skills that they can be able to utilize in any job? And I think that has been the biggest problem, that we find most of the youth, the kind of the education system we went through, their perception is to look for jobs in offices.
Yes.
But nowadays it might be very difficult to get a white-collar job. Therefore, this is why the government has come up with the vocational training colleges, so that they can get a skill, a plumber, a mason, or go into some business opportunities. Therefore, for me, I see this data giving us an opportunity. This is where we start by every county, so that we don't tend to think it's one size fits all. Maybe some people in Nairobi can get more opportunity in business, but what can somebody in Mandera be able to do? So if there are maybe opportunities where there could be like dams, where they could start doing farming in irrigation. Therefore, for me, it is true. We need to build on that data so that we have a different intervention for a different county as far as job employment is concerned. And for women, for every county, we also need to what can empower women. There are cases where we have found also, if you give women water, you have already empowered them 50%. Because in like Northeastern, where women spend almost the whole day looking for 20 liters water.
Yes.
And of course, when they come to the drought situation, they can't even have any food for their children. Therefore, I think every county will need a different intervention for women, and where the government has gone ahead to give like Women Enterprise Fund, UESO Fund, for those who are in business can be able to benefit from that. So in my view, government working across ministries need to look at different intervention, and they're already in place, and build on that data, so that now if we're having Mandera at maybe 75%, then maybe next year we want to reduce it to 60. It should be able to give a target, renewed target on how we reduce poverty in Kenya. And I think if you look at Vision 2030, it also aimed at reducing poverty.
Thank you.
When you look at sustainable development goals, they are also targeting on reducing poverty. So the government has done a lot, and I think you run all the ministries. There are specific efforts fighting poverty and improving the quality of life for Kenyans.
Right. Let's hear from Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa. Looking at this particular development, and we know, the counties were meant also to create jobs for youth, create jobs for women. It's a big shame. Do you hold with the view that this is a ticking time bomb? And if it is, then what?
Indeed, it is a ticking time bomb. You remember when we had this 2007-2008 situation, and we had the leaders sitting at Serena looking at the issues affecting the country. And they came up with about 4 or so agendas where they were saying, no, we have to stop these hostilities, we have to restore peace, we have to look at our land issues, we have to look at constitutional and institutional reforms. But the main issue was the issue of youth unemployment. It's a ticking time.
Yes.
Even after that, I think several interventions have been put in place. One of the most successful really is the issue of giving the youth the opportunity to grow entrepreneurship, to be able to get out there and say, okay, we have about 30% set aside for us to do business with government under this AGPO arrangement. You're talking of almost 200 billion worth of business. But so far, what we are tapping in, the uptake is very low, not more than 50 billion. So we want to encourage more youth to come out, to benefit from these interventions by government, so that you don't go waiting for those jobs. They might not be coming. Because when you look at the number of youths coming out of our universities, our institutions, looking at the jobs being created, it's a surplus. So we must find a way of telling these young people, you can get out. We have made Kenya one of the best countries as far as the ease of doing business is concerned. through our legal and policy reforms. It's easier now for a young person to get out of college, register a company, and be out there to go and get a tender, to go and get some money through the Youth Enterprise Fund, and be able to do business. I think this is the way to go. And we must get out there and see how to encourage them to do this. Yes.
But of course, the issue also of supply debts,
Yes.
Debt of the payment also has been a big issue. This
Yes.
has adversely affected also people who maybe are also given these tenders as well.
It's a big concern, and recently...
and we've been talking a good game about it. I think even for the last 2 years we've been talking about this, and I think the issue has not been addressed.
I think it has. In the last IBEC meeting,
Yes.
under the chairmanship of His Excellency the Deputy President, we agreed with all the county governments that we will take about 60 days to do verification and authentication of all those dates, and after that they must be paid, because many of those who have supplied young people, women who have borrowed money from somewhere to go and supply, and when you are unable to pay them for this period, the banks are on their cases, and we have a situation, instead of helping them, we have actually put them in problems. So it is something that we are addressing as national government and the county governments. We've set a time frame of 2 months for this to be concluded and payments to be made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and of course that is not the focus of the day. We want to talk about tribalizing this particular country. We just want to put the rules of engagement in the house. I have my bell with me. This is just to make sure that we keep time, because I know, most of you, Wamalwa is a politician. Of course, I know also Margaret Kobia in academia. Sometimes we can actually get overtaken, of course, with what we're presenting, and we also lose time. Just to keep track, I'll give you around 8 minutes, each of you. I will want you to walk to the lectern, which is just, ahead of you, and you have camera 3. You'll talk to the nation. You tell us, how can we detribalize this nation? How can we make sure that, yes, we have a cohesive country? Right now that we have a pact, there was a happy medium between Raila Odinga and, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Then what is the next step, right? And since also, as I mentioned earlier, we have devolution with us, has it entrenched tribalism, or it is trying actually to address the issue? So which way to go? Right, so I'll urge you, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, since you're near the lectern, to just walk over to the lectern.
Thank you.
I'll give you 8 minutes, as I mentioned. Right, midway, I'll just try and lift the bell to just tell you, yes, you're midway through your speech, so you should be also making sure that you're preparing also your closing remarks as well. So we have 8 minutes beginning now.
Thank you very much. God has put us together, people from diverse backgrounds, from different communities. So far, we've been talking of 42 different tribes in Kenya. Recently, we had the Makonde joining us, and we're talking of 43 different tribes. But also,
all right,
we have agreed as a country.
Sorry, I'm sorry to butt in. I'm given to understand also the mic has just gone off. We'll take a short break, but I'm sorry about that. We'll circle back with you just to begin. So sorry for that interference. We take a short break right now. When we come back, please, we'll continue with that particular presentation. All right, welcome back. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live. We do apologize for that audio technical challenge that we had there. We had to take a short break. But of course, we had on the lectern the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Devolution, to talk to us about detribalizing this nation and how we can foster cohesion. So, Eugene Wamalwa, we had given you 8 minutes. So, of course, we'll begin from the tops. Again, I'll ring the bell from the tops. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just want to say that fellow Kenyans, we are greatly blessed as a nation in terms of the diversity in the tribes that live in this country, diversity in our wildlife, diversity in the landscape that we have from the coast to the mountains to the lakes. Indeed, Kenya is a beautiful, diversified country. And this diversity should not really be our weakness as a nation. It should be the strength of our nation, because there's beauty in diversity. It's like the beauty of the rainbow, and it is something that we need to appreciate. In our Constitution, we acknowledge the supremacy of God. We acknowledge the heroic struggle and those who have made us get to where we have. But indeed, we do also appreciate and take pride in our diversity, our ethnic diversity, our cultural, our religious, our political diversity. And we say in our constitution, in spite of our diversity, we must strive to find unity in our diversity. We must strive to live together as one united, peaceful, indivisible nation. However, along the way, we've had challenges, right from independence. We've had challenges, divisions along tribal lines, and particularly our politics has been very divisive. One area that led us to great conflict was when we were having multi-party democracy coming back to our country, and we had serious ethnic fights, and we did, after the 2007-2008 general election, come together, talk to each other, and say we must find a solution. One of the solutions was to bring about constitutional and institutional reforms, to bring about equality, to bring about equity. And what we passed was one of the most progressive constitutions that came out of this. And this constitution has several solutions to the problems that we've had as a nation. One of the greatest solutions lies in Chapter 11 of our constitution. This is devolution. I feel greatly honored, and I want to thank His Excellency the President for giving me the opportunity to lead this very critical ministry. Because through devolution, we want to bring about equality, we want to bring about equity, we want to give power to the people, to be involved in their governance, to participate in the leadership and the decision-making process in their counties, wherever they may live. But also, in terms of bring about equality, we do know that after independence, we had session paper number 10 of 1965 that focused more on the high potential areas. In the process, some parts of this country are left behind, particularly the northern part of this country, the arid and semi-arid lands that didn't show a lot of potential. But now, through devolution, we are able to bring resources to every corner of this country that did not have. And we are also able to overcome the divisive politics, because through devolution now, it matters not where a certain community lives or a certain group of a different persuasion politically, religiously, or otherwise from yourself. They are entitled, as Kenyans, through this constitution, through devolution, to their fair share of the national cake through devolution. Now we are seeing counties that had never seen development for many years. Counties like Wajir, for the first time, have tarmac roads. When you go to Mandera, you are seeing medical facilities come into areas that had no facilities, had to come all the way to Nairobi. Now, we want to appreciate this, but also we remain aware of the challenges of tribalism creeping into these counties. And we want to work very closely with our governors, with our county governments, with our members of county assemblies to ensure that we do not defeat the purpose for devolution. The main objective was to bring about equality, to bring about development. And we cannot allow discrimination within the counties, because we know that within these counties, we have different communities living together. We have different clans living together. When you fight to become a governor, you are not the governor of your clan, you are not the governor of your tribe, you are the governor of the entire county. But we know that our divisive politics has led to this conflict. In some areas, we've seen clans fighting. In some areas, we have seen marginalization within the counties that was not there before. So as Minister for Devolution, I want to promise Kenyans we work very, very closely as national government with our county governments to ensure that the fruits of devolution reach every Kenyan, reach every corner of this country, and we do away with tribalism. One other thing that we are very pleased about is the management of our politics. When we look at our Vision 2030, we have 3 pillars: social pillar, the economic pillar, and the political pillar. We want to ensure that even if we succeed in the other 2 pillars, we must succeed on that pillar that manages our politics, so that our politics is issue-based, is people-centered, and we do away with the tribal politics. We're very, very pleased that our leaders have led us in the right direction. When we had President Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto bring together different parties that had actually a tribal basis, parties that were regional in nature, coming together into one national party called the Jubilee Party, bringing together people from different regions, people from different religions. This is a step in the right direction in managing our politics. We're very pleased that the opposition also, under the NASA banner, have also brought together different parties who have come together to address national issues together on a platform of change. And this we want to encourage, and we hope going into the future, we can mature like other democracies. When you look at the United States, you have the Democratic Party, you have the Republican Party. When you go to the UK, you have the Conservatives, and you have the Labour Party. And what we are looking at is a competition of ideas. Who has a better agenda for the country? Who has better programs for the country? Not who is from my community, who is my person, who is closer to me. Maybe we speak the same language, maybe we come from the same region, or we profess the same religion. This is how we're going to end tribalism in Kenya. And with this, we want to thank His Excellency the President, and to thank the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. What happened on the 9th of March is indeed what can be called a Good Friday. It can be compared to the Good Friday deal out there in the UK when we had Jerry Adams and the Unionists shaking hands, and they're dealing with the IRA problem, bringing about unity, bringing about peace and stability. Indeed, it was a Good Friday for our country, and would like to urge all leaders, wherever they may live, or whichever part of the country they might come from, or whichever party, to support this initiative. Because when we have peace, when we have stability, we can be able to achieve the Big Four. Without peace and stability as an enabler, the Big Four agenda will not succeed. Our Vision 2030 agenda will not succeed. Agenda 2030 for realization of our SDGs will not succeed. Therefore, let us support this initiative, and we're very pleased that our members of the National Assembly did pass a resolution, a motion supporting the peace accord. For this we thank them, and we must take pride in the leadership our National Assembly has provided. Equally, we must thank our senators for passing the motion that they did, supporting the President and the former Prime Minister in this initiative, and would like to see this go down, even as the President and the former Prime Minister move to talk to Kenyans in the counties. Let us all support them. Let us see the county assemblies also coming on board, so that the county government, the governors and their people on the ground are talking the same message, so that our members of our county assemblies, even those who had passed resolutions not recognizing the President or passing the people's assemblies, this is the time now to undo that damage. To say now we have motions also in our counties supporting the peace initiative, placing the feet of this nation on the path of healing and reconciliation, and doing away with the divisive politics that has divided us along tribal lines, along regional lines, and I believe this way we will succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Eugene Wamalwa, the Cabinet Secretary of Devolution and Planning. And of course, a raft of issues is raised, touching on the divisive politics. And of course, we have remedial measure. We're waiting eagerly to see how this will pan out, the happy medium of President Uhuru Kenyatta and also the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. There is beauty in diversity. Of course, the rich cultures that we have within different tribes as well is alluded to that. And that also we can see is a strength that we do have and not a weakness. I want to call upon also the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender, Margaret Kobia, to work on the lectern, to also give us her perspective. Within her docket, of course, we know the public sector, many people have been complaining about employment and of the way it's been skewed to one tribe. And of course, we have this particular big tribe that has many numbers. But yes, when it comes also to job offers, how are they also making sure that it is equally distributed? And so if you have questions on that note, of course, also you can paper that question much later in the course of the program. But for now, I want to hear from herself what is up her collective sleeves as far as making sure also that we are trying to detribalize the public sector. Margaret, you have 8 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on Leadership Forum regarding detribalizing Kenya. First, I would like to say that what is a tribe? And a tribe is a group of people who are connected and who believe in similar maybe practices in terms of language, in terms of culture, in terms of geographical area that they stay. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with the tribe. Being a tribe, especially in Kenya, where we are about maybe 43, 44, if we count the Asia now, then we find that we are all placed in this country as tribes. Some tribes are bigger than others, tribes are smaller, and I think what I wanted to emphasize is there is nothing wrong being a Kikuyu, being a Luo, or being any other tribe. However, when we practice tribalism, is when we seem to be aligned to our tribal kind of cocoons, and we practice unethical practices because maybe of my tribe. And in that case, we see that practicing tribalism brings a wedge between communities, that is, and it influences our behavior in terms of saying us and them. When I see myself as tribe X and I see somebody else tribe Y, then it gives like them versus us. We are good, they are bad. We bring prejudices. That means we know this tribe is known for a particular behavior. And I think when we work like that, we miss the national unity. Therefore, the fact that we practice tribalism can bring a bad or a negative value judgment on how we treat people, especially when we are delivering services. Therefore, in the public service, I think leadership really matters. Because it's in the public service where you try to see, are we providing quality services regardless of tribe? So anybody who go to any government office is not expecting to be looked at and be judged or be categorized in a certain tribe before they get the service. Therefore, in government, it really matters that how are we dealing with tribalism? Because we have also accepted there's tribalism in Kenya. Why? Even the framers of the Constitution, they were very clear to say that the kind of society they want, they need Article 10, which brings about patriotism, unity. That means the Constitution already understood. For this country to move together, we needed to practice the Article 10, which talks about values and the principles of good governance. And in that, then, if the leaders in every public institution understand these values and the principles of good governance, then tribalism would be reduced, because when people go to the office, when you are hiring, you are not just looking at who comes from my area. You are looking at who has the qualification as per criteria, then you give them the job. Let me also point out in Kenya, of course, we have what we call 5 tribes, being Kalenjin, Kikuyus, Kambas, Luos, and Luyas. Those 5 form a big number of the population, and for that reason, they will find in employment, because of historical experiences, that they are more than other tribes. Because they are more than other tribes, then they are also represented in terms of employment. So what Public Service Commission has done is to, with also support of National Cohesion and Integration Commission, is to look at what are the numbers in various government institutions looking like when it comes to tribes. And of course, in the civil service, it's not as bad as maybe when you look at the parastatals, where also in the universities fall. Therefore, in that sense, is the leadership with those institutions. And we have seen sometimes there's a tendency of, if a CEO is coming from this particular tribe, there's a tendency to have more staff coming from that tribe. That is a reality. So what is happening now is we take the data of the tribes in Kenya and try to give a proportionate recruitment in the public service so that no tribe is given a bigger proportion than it should have. However, when it comes to those who are already in the service, I don't think we can do much, especially when we're doing promotion. We are trying to see those who are already in the service, they couldn't be having a bigger representation simply because they had opportunities, maybe at independence, they had education, they had resources, they went to school, and for that reason, they got the jobs. So as we're moving forward now, is like saying, still in this country now, because the government has done very well in development, I don't think out of the 44 ethnic groups, you can miss a particular scale if you wanted it. Therefore, what we have decided to do at the public service is to give that opportunity, which we call like affirmative action, that if you find somebody who is coming from a marginalized tribe, smaller tribes, and has the qualification and has met all the criteria. So even if these other big five, you have somebody who has met the criteria and is top, then you can reach out, and the Constitution allows us to do that, so that you try to heal, so that when Kenyans look at an organization in the public service, they see the face of Kenya. The Constitution demands that. But we have also seen that some effort, because of political interference, where in the public service, this is cropping up, that people are looking at others against the lens of tribalism. And what is very important is we have developed a code of governance called Mwongozo, which gives us very specific criteria for recruitment, criteria for how bonds should be run, especially when they're dealing with the recruitment, so that representation, and also sensitizing people that in government, if we are not working as a team, and any good organization leaders know that people have to work in teams. People cannot work in teams if they have got bad feeling about one another because of tribalism. Therefore, when you look also at chapter 6 and the registration that follows, it tries to encourage people to be more in teams, more for the development, to make sure that each tribe is given equal opportunity in terms of recruitment, in terms of promotion, and I think the Constitution also put that very, very, very clear. Therefore, in my view, we must ask ourselves, how do we become this tribal? Looking at maybe other countries like Tanzania. We hear Tanzania, when it comes to tribalism, they don't practice tribalism. In fact, in Tanzania and even Rwanda today, nobody will ask you which tribe you come from. But in Kenya, I think we have a tendency, when we meet people, the first thing we want to know is their name, and probably even ask their second name, because we want kind of to put them in a tribal perspective, maybe, and that influences how we treat them because of the stereotype that we have. I think to cure that, government has really, including the president, has come in the forefront to tell Kenyans, if we really want to develop, we have to be a one united community. And what has made maybe people sometimes be a little bit about not very comfortable with the maybe the way people handle each other is the distribution of resources, to the extent that people tend to think that if somebody has a job in a particular office, it belongs to the community. But that is completely wrong. And if somebody has a job in a particular, coming from a particular community, it should be looked at, these people have a job because they met the criteria. And the community does not really gain because you have somebody in that office. I think sensitizing people and making them see that for this country to move forward, we need to have the unity, disregard the tribalism that we practice, so that we can have a better quality of life for all Kenyans. That is, with, of course, now national government working with the county government and the distribution of resources, and making sure the public servants are not interfered with as far as getting tribal is concerned, because civil service is the center that holds the country from one administration to the other. Therefore, if they start practicing tribalism, we can see the danger. And that's why there are various efforts, including Mwongozo, registration, going back also to the Constitution, to make sure that if you practice tribalism, I think that it shouldn't be punished. And the compliance, especially with the numbers in our organization, representation, I think any organization that does not comply, and we have seen this when we do evaluation of implementation of to what extent are public institutions meeting values and the principles of public service. We have seen some pockets where some organizations cannot explain how there are more tribes than from the others. But I think with moving forward, we must comply with the registration of the laws that are there. We must comply with the Mwongozo, and by so doing, then we will move united as a country. And where tribalism is practiced, I think it should be shamed, so that people can be able to see this organization is practicing tribalism, give them an opportunity to make good by making sure they have the face of Kenya. And I think that those can make us move together as a country.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Margaret Kobia, the Cabinet Secretary of course, the Public Service, Youth and Gender. And we will raise, of course, our numbers on the screen for you to call and ask questions or if you share your contribution as well. But for now, we want to sit down and, of course, tackle some of these issues they've raised. We began with Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa telling us about the diversity of, and the beauty of our tribes this morning. And we want also to drill deeper on the issue of the counties when it comes now to employment. Because I'll raise this question to you, Waziri, because it seems, especially picking like a county of Kiambu, recently we know what really happened there. And of course, they were saying, yes, this is codified in the Constitution at 70% should go to the local, 30% to other Kenyans. But this is not being observed. Yes. From your standpoint, then what are you trying to do to effectively make sure that, yes, the Constitution is being followed to the letter?
I think, first of all, the counties are not countries. The counties, we have 47 counties, yes, but all in one country called Kenya. Mm-hmm. We have a constitution that binds us all together as Kenyans. So whatever we do must be within the confines of that constitution.
Yes.
And when we have county assemblies, or even the National Assembly, or even the Senate passing certain laws that are unconstitutional, Kenyans have the right to challenge such laws, the right to reject such laws, and any legislation that would go against the letter and spirit of the Constitution. And if you woke up today and you said you are the governor of Mandera, mm-hmm, and Mandera is predominantly Muslim, and you will not allow non-Muslims to serve or to hold office in, yes, Mandera, that would be unconstitutional, and definitely it will be rejected. And we just want to encourage the county governments to look at the positive side. Why did we create these county governments? Why did we have this constitution bring about devolution? So that we bring about equality and equity. We stop the issues of discrimination, marginalization. So we cannot have even counties that were marginalized now allowing marginalization from within. So these are issues of concern, and we are monitoring, and we are also working very closely with the National Cohesion Commission under Chairman Kaparo. They are closely monitoring what's happening in the counties as well as nationally, mm-hmm, because it's not only at the counties. I think tribalism has been with us, yes, long before the counties came, and we must all see how we can fight it together.
All right. Yes. Maybe because it seems to be a lot of ambiguity when it comes to that particular quarters, 70-30. Yeah, it's being interpreted variously. What is the clarity from the Constitution as far as that particular article is concerned?
Well, I think the limitation allows Kenya to remain diversified, because if you are to allow a county that has predominantly one community, mm-hmm, to do everything in accordance with what they would like, they would say, okay, the upcountry people, you can't get jobs here. But we have people, mm-hmm, who live in that county who are qualified and who can actually serve not just the county, but the country. They must not be denied that opportunity. Mm-hmm. So putting the 30% minimum really allows that mixing of communities and Kenyans. And we must continue working on it. I think even in future, perhaps we might need to look at a 50-50, so that we continue the integration of our counties. These would actually promote our national cohesion. It will be good for us. But left unchecked, these counties can turn into incubation areas for tribalism and clanism. So we must very, very closely follow up on this issue and ensure that we do not allow that to happen, because it will defeat, mm-hmm, the primary objective for which devolution was brought to this country. Yes.
And I think we have maybe a good public awareness in terms of making sure people truly understand devolution, because when it comes to resources, they say, of course, this is within our turf.
Correct.
We don't want to share, resources.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is actually the aspect also of the intergovernmental organizations, or the committee that we do know that is there to make sure that there's, an understanding that, yes, the waters that is flowing from Murang'a to Nairobi, we cannot claim this is Moranga's water, and so it should not go to Nairobi, because of course these are resources that we should share equitably. But we seem not to really understand, because when you want maybe to get revenues, that is where now we get a tripping wire.
Yes, we have serious challenges actually. Just coming from the Ministry of Water, we have inter-counties and intra-counties or water wars that are going on, and as national government, really, our role is to ensure that we develop the infrastructure that cuts across counties and sometimes even across countries, because water is transboundary.
Yes.
It does not respect boundaries, or maybe this county or this country, it cuts across. And we have worked very hard to develop this infrastructure. We're putting up over 60 dams across Kenya and developing this. But the water services is really a devolved function. Now it's for the county government to be able to ensure that people are supplied with water as the national government puts up the infrastructure. But you find that there are areas where counties are saying, this is our water. We don't want it to go to the next county. We have a situation where Bomet and Kericho have had a long-standing issue that as national government we have to come in to try and ensure that it doesn't lead to a conflict. We have a situation where Kajiado is saying we are going to close this North line so that this water does not go to Kambani. Now, as national government, we must come in to ensure that that does not happen. And we also want to work very closely on improvement of intergovernmental relations between the national and the county governments, but also between the county governments themselves. We are just working as we speak. I'm going to Mombasa this morning on alternative dispute resolution regulations, which we'll be bringing to Parliament very, very soon, to allow counties, because there are very many counties that are fighting, that are in court, even institutions between the national government and the county governments. We're spending hundreds of millions of shillings on litigation, enriching lawyers, when as government we can actually have alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. And this is one area I'm focusing on in my docket, and we want to see improved relations. We want to see disputes resolved between counties, between the county government and the national government, without putting us to a lot of expense in expensive suits in court. So this is one area we're working on very, very closely. But the challenges are there.
The challenges are there.
Yes.
And of course, let's come back to Professor Margaret Kobia, because you alluded to the fact that, yes, when you come to public institutions, especially when we have a particular CEO, we see other lines, of course, of the lower cadres also being maybe from the tribesmen. And the casting point is what is happening with the Kenyatta National Hospital right now, a very contentious issue that has also brought about so many MPs together saying that we want to impeach Cecil Kariuki because of this. And of course, the Deputy President has intervened. This is just epitomizing what really is so baked in the cake as far as tribalism is concerned in the public sector as well. Maybe you can tell us this morning, then how you asked a very pivotal question: how do we come to be in this particular morass that we are in today, that we are so focusing our eyes, that are so looking with spectacles that are tinted with tribalism. Everything that we see, it has to be my second name. If I give you my first name, then you'll ask me, where do you come from?
Okay. Thank you. I think the whole issue of tribalism and the reason why we are fighting it is because we've known diversity really improves the quality of the outcome of the services that we give. If we are only having one community or tribe making a decision around the table, then you can imagine the perspective, the kind of other people feel excluded. And whenever other people feel not included enough, they are likely to behave differently and not support maybe their view. And then you realize the public service is not moving fast because there are strains, because the people are feeling not included. Of course, it's also an issue of good governance, that if you include more communities in the Kenyan context, then the decisions that is made is likely to be accepted. Therefore, that's why you find in the public service, when you hire people, they are supposed to work in a part of the country. and that is in them, so nobody would even question if they are transferred. You realize recently TSC was transferring all head teachers,
yes,
because they've been in one school for 20 years, and that also now was breeding tribalism. And you can imagine that when they did the transfers, you realize there was a lot of resistance to change. Therefore, this is something we have because of long history, right from independence, where some tribes was perceived to have benefited from the system. Even today, that perception is there that they had opportunity to get some resources. Therefore, other tribes feel excluded. Let me also say, when it comes to tribalism, in fact, the people who suffer more is gender and youth, especially women. Women, they should actually be tribalists because they can easily intermarry, and then when we start practicing it, we are already endangering those families that are in that kind of a relationship. Youth, of course, if they are coming from these kind of marriages, and then they are even having struggles with identity of which tribe it should be, then I think we should move as a country that those intermarriages where we are getting people kind of value now to this tribalize, then I think that is the right direction, so that the youth don't struggle with defining which tribe I am, because it should not matter anymore. Therefore, what we are trying to see is how we got here. It has been a wrong practice. It has been a perception issue, and that's why even the Constitution, in this Article 10, Article 232, came up with provisions that how everything we should do should have the face of Kenya. Everything we should do should not discriminate against tribe or marginalized. Therefore, what we should be doing is to see to what extent are we implementing the Constitution and moving forward, detribalizing Kenya. You asked me the question of Kenyatta Hospital. That I don't see tribalism really playing in the case of Kenyatta Hospital. I think it is more of, I don't think it's tribalism which is playing.
But we have legislators who come to the fore, all the press conference saying that, oh, it's one of ours who's being targeted. You know, our man syndrome.
I think, to me, that is an easier option. It's true Kenyans, if one of, and I said that if somebody is occupying a certain office, there is a perception that that is ours. So even without thinking deeper, what could be in the underlying reasons, people will tend to. And I think this one we should come out strongly and be able to condemn that you don't just support our view just because you have those tribal affiliation. Let's look at the real reasons that has caused that particular challenge in the Kenyatta Hospital, rather than where we have seen in this country, members of parliament, other leaders, will rather behind, even when people have been involved in a very clear case of corruption. And the people will come to support that this is one of our own, because there's that perception that there is something to gain as a tribe or as an individual if you support a view just from tribalism. I think this is what Kenya should fight very strongly, to say, let's look at the facts. If somebody is found culpable of committing a certain unethical practices, they should be punished. And that's why in the public service, we are very open in terms of recruitment will be competitive. It will be put in the papers. It will be put in the website. And everybody knows, for me to get this job, I must apply. I must go through interviews. I must go for after the interview, then you take the most competitive person, because the Constitution says recruitment in the public service is competitive. Therefore, anybody who might feel that the recruitment process of any candidate has not gone right, you have seen a lot of people going even to court. That means people are alert to find if a process is not done right. They want to question it, they want to get answers, and if they're not satisfied, they even go to court. So to me, I think we are on the right track of people being sensitive, being aware, so that when they are seeing unethical practices arising from tribalism, they are able to shout, so that then we can be able to correct the wrongs that we have done. So the issue of communities coming to support a certain person because for the reason of just tribal, it is the wrong approach to adopt. Right. And that is going to sink us deeper, because these values in the Constitution, do we live them? Do we practice them? Or do we just speak them? So if we don't live them, then we end up not really complying, and then we continue sinking deeper in the tribal issues, and this now would end up dipping this country in more problem, and even the gains that we have made. Because I was looking at, maybe when I went to school, are we more tribal now than maybe 20 years ago? In the past, we would see where the country was trying to put people from different ethnic groups to be in the same school. They used to call them quota system, which I thought it was a very good idea, because that's how you come to appreciate other tribes and the perception that you have about and the stereotype they could be sorted at that stage. But I think moving forward, because of the way maybe communities, leaders are coming, and I think this is why leaders should be not to practice tribalism, because they have a bigger influence. If you are a member of parliament or you are a leader in a state corporation, in fact, leaders is not about position. It's about all of us with the responsibilities, making sure that when we come to handling people, giving services, that you are not being influenced by tribalism. Then I think that perception that we Kenyans tend to rally behind, and I think it has been reinforced by politics, that tribalism has even affected our democracy. When it comes to voting, people will vote on tribal lines rather than looking for the best leader.
Yeah, and of course,
and it has also now affected our unity.
And this is where actually the aspect of a management of politics that you're talking about comes to bear. But we'll look at that much later. But first of all, Bana Eugene Wamalwa, tell me, from your own estimation, as she's alluding to the fact, maybe 30 years, 20 years back, I went to school where we know we were actually mixed, from a different quarter of this country, we from different tribes, Indians, Arabs, Somalis, we were there. And it never rose even, to my mind that actually we are tribal, or she's coming from this different community, that I am different from her. Yes. But right now, I think, so to speak, that this thing is turning out to be something else that is a different kettle of fish of what we grew up, 20 years or 30 years back. Maybe you can tell us, from your own estimation, you think devolution also has entrenched? Because we understand there are some institutions also, some of its universities, they speak in the the mother tongue, the dialect, the common language in the county, and they say, let us address our issues first in our own mother tongue, then the rest of the outsiders, then we will inform them later.
Correct. Yes.
You've heard about these things.
Yes. No, but it's quite unfortunate, and I want to agree with Professor Kobia that something has changed. We seem to be retrogressing instead of progressing. Like in my case, I went to a primary school where my community was largely the dominant group there. But when I joined secondary school, I was amongst the Nandis in a school called Kipsangui. The majority were Nandis there, and I made very good friends that I've kept all the way up to university. From there, I went to West Pokot, Chewet High School. And this is predominantly a Pokot area, and I've made very good friends that I still keep up to now, including my own teacher, Honorable Pogisho, who is now the senator for West Pokot, and whom I came to serve with in the last cabinet. I was very pleased. We've kept those friendships right from West Pokot up to here, where I went to school. I also went for my sixth form in Nyanza, Homa Bay County, Gendi High School. And we have good friends that we made from those days up to now. And this diversity is very, very good. When you're growing up, if someone tells you Luos are bad, you tell them, no, I grew up amongst them, and they're the most generous people. You would leave school and go to a homestead, and they will give you water. And after water, they will give you a gourd of porridge. And I lived amongst the Pokot. And this is something that exposes a child as he grows up to be more Kenyan, not just to be Luya. But there are people who have grown up in the same area. I know of a friend who was born in Kakamega, went to Kakamega Government School, primary, went to Kakamega High, then went to Masinde Muliro University, a proximity of 10 kilometers. Then married his childhood sweetheart. So he's a real, so he's the real Kakamega man. So when this man goes to Mombasa, it's a total shock. Or if he was sent to Mandera, there's that shock that he goes through. And we must encourage this. When we started carrying out education, reforms in the education sector, A lot of people were fighting my brother C.S. Matiang'i. But what he was trying to do is good for this country. If you are a professor of law, you can teach anywhere. You can teach law at Moi University, Faculty of Law, Nairobi University, or any other university. It's not a must that you must be in a certain area where your community is. And we must also desist from, as leaders, saying, no, we don't want this teacher in our school. He must go back to Kiambu where he comes from. Or we don't want this professor in this university because he's a lawyer. He must go back. There's a university in Kakamega. No, we can't allow that. I think this must change. We must start by detribalizing our education system. We must start by detribalizing our politics. And honestly, I do hope that what is happening in NASA does not collapse. A united NASA is good for Kenya. To provide checks and balances against a strong Jubilee. And a stronger Jubilee is good for Kenya. When we have strong parties, when we have Kenyans coming together, not caring which community you come from. You find lawyers in Jubilee, you find lawyers in NASA. You find Giriamas in Jubilee, you find Giriamas in NASA. Now, what would separate us is not where we come from, but where we want to go as a country, the vision, the agenda. This is really what should happen in our country. And it's good for our country through detribalization of our politics. We can be able to detribalize Kenya. We also want to look at the fight against corruption.
Yes.
Unless we detribalize the fight against corruption, we will not succeed. When we had the Kenya We Want conference in 2009, we came down to two things. Why is it that Kenya, at independence, was at par with South Korea, with Malaysia, the so-called Singapore, the Asian tigers? We were at par, our GDP, but along the way, we were left behind. And in the 2009 conference, they said two things: corruption and tribalism slowed Kenya down. So it's about time we address this head on. And I think we have what it takes. It's already happening. With the handshake by our president and the former prime minister, we can pick on that to build on this moment to change this country. Yes.
Right, and of course when we talk about corruption and tribalism, they're intertwined because you have in the public sector, you know, a person who is from a different community or, yes, is from this particular community. And I think if I get someone from my community as well, I'll have my back covered. No one will really expose me. So how then do we uncouple this? That yes, it doesn't, and you've talked about the Mwongozo Code. You'll tell us more about Mwongozo Code and what is codified within Mwongozo Code. Because we know when you're talking about Mwongozo Code, it's essentially issues to do with corporate governance, right? And we always talk about also good corporate citizenship as well. So how do we reinforce good corporate governance, even maybe when it is coming from the private sector into the public sector, that yes, you don't have to, you know, observe my tribe. Gender has also to be observed, that there is inclusivity and, you know, diversity also in the boards, in the organizations as well. Very briefly.
Yeah, let me say that we now know that there is a relationship between tribalism and corruption. And we can see corruption, really tribalism supporting corruption in the sense that when we place people maybe in the procurement because they come from our community, is a kind of a facilitation. However, I want to say this is really a journey fighting corruption because we have to fight it so that we have registration, we have Mwongozo, but I think we should go beyond that. We should look at kind of a holistic, really confronting this problem of tribalism as Kenyans, so that even when we have a Mwongozo, which says very clearly, the board of directors needed to have diversity in terms of gender, in terms of age, in terms of the ethnic representation. That's one phase of it. Then when it comes to recruitment in these organizations, we must make sure that the criteria that is given as the law or the constitution must be followed. Where it is not followed, Kenyans must blow the whistle, so that now whoever is not complying can be punished. So for me, I believe having a punitive approach to those who are not complying is one approach of fighting this tribalism. Again, we are finding that when people kind of right from home, the parents tend to support the view of tribalism. I think we need to sensitize Kenyans what opportunities we are missing because we are practicing tribalism. And right from the parents, schools, right from the workplaces. It really needs a concerted effort. We already know that all these laws we have put and it's not really solving it. We must find another punitive way of approaching those who are, punishing those who are practicing tribalism, in my view. So I think if we are finding in the universities, maybe they have hired people who come from, the ministry should move fast and decide, let's have one hiring institution that will put those who are in Narok, or those who are in Meru, those,
yes.
Just let's reshuffle them the way TSC took courage and has already been able to reshuffle people that they don't belong to, because then you break that kind of chain where you find tribalism is cropping up because of the CEOs, because of the VCs. So I think we must be courageous enough, because we will not be kind of breaking any law, but we will be confronting a challenge which I would improve how we move forward as a country. Of course, that will be a change. A change is never smooth, it's never accepted, but I also know that if your change is not resisted, then it's not change. We have reached a situation now, I think, where we need to confront step by step what needs to be done by those who are found to practice tribalism and the extent to which it's ruining this country.
And it's a good thought. Maybe also we can actually get that particular aspect to devolution.
Yes.
Can we have a framework that instead of maybe just recruiting from your local community, of course you'll observe the 70-30% rule, but also inter-county transfers of staff.
Correct.
Right? That after a certain period of time, then we'll have, a county shake-up, so to speak. And we have a legal framework that is crafted to make sure that, yes, everyone is happy, because this is actually as per the book. It is not done out of the volition maybe of the minister or the governors or the council of governors, so to speak. Is there something we could do that maybe this will try and sort of ameliorate tribalism in the country?
Yes, I think there's a lot that can be done, and we need to think outside the box,
yes,
and come up with new ideas on how we can move the country forward and how we can strengthen devolution at the same time detribalize our country. I think it can be done. There are laws that are already there, but without the will, the goodwill, the political goodwill, they'll just remain in our statute books. They will not be practiced out there. But we need to find mechanisms for ensuring enforcement of these laws. And one area that I'm very passionate about is this issue of the 30% procurement rule. You find that very many counties have not really implemented this. I think we want to see a mechanism, and we want to work very closely with the county governments and the budget controller or budget office to really start looking at. We look at the national, let's start with the ministries actually. We must be able to show if we've been able to meet the threshold. How many young people, how many women, persons with disabilities are accessing these tenders? And this, in a way, if it's done fairly, we'll kill tribalism, because it doesn't matter who you know or what tribe you come from, but it is your right that you access that share that is preserved for you as a young person, as a woman, as a person with disability. And if we can be able to do these other counties, I think it will have a very big impact. If these counties were able to ensure that 30%, all of these tenders that are going out in the counties, go to our young people, go to our women, to persons with disability, we will be able to succeed. Yes.
All right. Could we maybe also have in government, I don't know where Mongozo is, just for the public service, or also it can be applied to the county government as well? Why do we have just corporate governance, for the public sector? Yeah, and it's not really going to the counties. Corporate governance is corporate governance. So how is applied within the public sector also should be applied, I think, within the counties as well. Is there a way we can have an interoperability between, of course, even the various ministries that we do have here, that you can borrow heavily from the Mongozo Code and try and implement it also to devolution?
The code of good governance, called Mongozo, is for entire public service. Even the counties are supposed to use it, especially when it comes to county public service boards, which are also structured for recruitment. a code of conduct can cut across actually. The one which was developed for public service, it is borrowed from across, from South Africa, from other public services. It is as good as even the same one actually used as private sector. So I think if that code is complied with, first, the people from the county, especially the governors, the county public service board directors, they could also, and I think that effort has gone through Kenya School of Government, sensitizing them on that code. So I think it should be able to help. But the whole issue is about, it's not like, nobody is checking on compliance.
Yes.
In my view, we should be able to find both national government, county government, what have you done, and that's why these studies every year are important. What have you done in terms of reaching out to the marginalized in the last year? And I think if you look at the data from Public Service Commission, we have brought in more people from marginalized tribes compared with what was there 3 years ago. And that has been using that representation so that you get more people from marginalized joining the public service. We know there were some tribes which were never there completely, but now we see them. But let me also point out that as we even try, in my view, as we try to fight the tribalism, the more it gets reinforced. You see, like when we are interviewing people and they are saying we want to use affirmative action, all these people are qualified, and then you say no, all these are qualified, 5 of them are qualified, but the number 5 is a Maasai. But number 1, 2, 3 are from the big tribes. Then you find this getting very heated. That are we looking at the more of the tribes, ethnic groups, or are we looking at the most competent person for this job? So we have found maybe at the entry level you can practice those affirmative action, but to a very senior job you might actually have to look for the most qualified. And the more we are actually trying to find ways of fighting, the more we tend to entrench. For example, if we look at the devolution, I think it was with good intention that we practiced devolution to bring services and resources closer to the people. But in the process of doing that, there's this unintended outcome that you find, if I am in Narok, only the Narok people would want to be in that county. So even when you ask this 30% for people to go to the Narok, they are looking at the cost, you know, that it will incur me more being in that particular location compared to if I was in town or if I was in my own county. So I think we need kind of a very open approach that works. Because if you find that, especially the universities, I have found people like being in their own county, which is cheaper to operate than maybe being posted in another county, in another university, yet we know it's good. So what I'm trying to say, we might have good ideas we want to implement, but in the process, they have an intended outcome. Then how do we deal with those unintended outcome? Because you realize, like, we are all universities now, VCs being from those ethnic groups where the universities are located. I think that was an intended outcome. We are seeing now all counties having almost 80% in some counties are from that county. So if you are 20, you also start, 20% you start feeling like, am I in the right county? Do these people, you can even assume, do these people really like me working here, or should I also start looking?
Which is natural.
Which is natural. They started looking for transfer, saying, perhaps I need to be in Nairobi or my own county. So that is something we have to confront, trying to show really people, when you go to see a doctor and you arrive there, you don't ask what tribe they are, but we will give you a service and you get satisfied.
Thank you.
So I think it's important.
Right. We have callers who are hanging on the line. You have something to say, or we can pick up the callers?
Pick up the callers.
Yeah, let's just pick up the callers who are hanging on the line, and of course we'll continue the conversation, remaining with a few minutes to go. Then we'll get clarity from, of course, our Shimiwas and also their closing remarks as well. We have Duncan hanging on the line from Kisumu. Good morning, Duncan.
Good morning, Debarl.
Morning to you. You have a question or a contribution this morning? Very briefly.
Yeah, I have a contribution.
Yes, please.
And thank you for a very informative discussion.
Thank you.
And for the panel that you have.
Yes, thank you.
This tribalism and devolution are taking Kenya, if I may use the word, to the dogs. I remember when we were employed by the Public Service Commission, I can say the process was very fair. Yeah, and we got opportunity to interact and be posted in different parts of the country. And when we were serving the different parts of the country, the issue of tribalism was the last thing in anybody's mind because where we were working, because we were from different areas. But now with the devolution, there's a lot of tribalism to the proportionals that you cannot understand. That even if you are the most qualified, somehow you'll just be put aside. Somebody from, they call themselves locals, and is put up there. Yeah? And even when devolution started, there were governors who were very good and they did not have that element of tribalism. But then you find that as they approach elections, their opponents come and campaign against them. That this governor has gone and brought foreigners into our county when our sons don't have jobs. Now what does this governor do? Yes, that was not his intention, but now he wants to retain his seat. Yeah? He knows what we are doing is bad, but his opponents now is using that against him.
Thank you.
So for me, if you ask me, we need to look at this devolution, and this County Public Service Board should be abolished. The Public Service Commission should advertise these jobs, then interview, then redistribute this. If a governor wants directors, let them write to the Public Service Commission. Then the Public Service Commission will recruit so that you find in Njoroge,
Thank you.
in Kisumu,
Thank you.
Otieno, in Mandera, and
Thank you,
that's how
Duncan.
we will work. Yeah.
Right, thank you, Duncan. We have also Samson Samuel hanging on the line as well. Good morning, Samuel. From Migori. Hello, good morning, Samuel.
Good morning, Debarl.
Yeah, morning to you. You have a question or a contribution for our panelists this morning?
I have a question for CS Wamalwa.
Yeah, very briefly.
Yeah, Wamalwa has explained clearly how himself went to school from the local area to Nandi, to West Pokot, to some school in Nyanza.
Yes.
Now, my question concerns something you put to him about the inter-county transfers for the county staffs. He hasn't addressed it, yet it is a very serious issue.
Yes.
Take for an example, somebody is employed by county government of Migori. This person can only be transferred within the county for the entire period of his work life, which I don't think would be contributing to the debate for today, the tribalism in Kenya. Can this person be transferred from Migori to Kisii or another county? Because right now, getting a transfer from one county to the other is hell. And I don't know whether CS Wamalwa has an answer for this. But are we really going to get to that point whereby I want to transfer service from Migori, maybe to Siaya, or to Nandi? When will this become a reality?
When will that become a reality? And of course, having no bugbears and fears, if you're in a different country and you find yourself to be the minority, that you'll be comfortable that you're still in Kenya. Maybe we should begin with what Duncan was putting forth about the county public service boards as well. Do you think in any way then we'll be interfering with, and I know you can actually also pick up on this, CS Wamalwa as well, because this also is marked up in the middle as well, interfering with the autonomy of devolution and the counties. They will feel like we're taking all these functions back to the national government. Let's begin with the CS. Yeah, Professor Margaret Kobia.
I think when you look at how the county public service boards have performed in the last maybe 5 years, some have done reasonably well, but I would say that they have had serious kind of institutional problems in terms of how to recruit from different counties. So it would actually kind of require looking into the constitution again. But I believe really having 47 county public service boards was not the best option. Because if you had one body that was doing for all the counties, I think it would be a better, cheaper, because even those boards also, you are sustaining them by paying salaries and allowances for the members of the board. So I think if we really wanted to have this cross tribal, one recruitment body for the county, in my view, I would propose it.
It will be cheaper.
It will be cheaper. It will be more. It will be more accepted, because now when we are dealing with every 47 counties, I think that kind of a framework is problematic.
Thank you. Just
because they will tend to feel like they should recruit people from there. Otherwise, they also face the people's rejection when they are recruiting people from outside. But if it was one, not necessarily Public Service Commission, but one done for the counties only, to do recruitment, just the way Public Service Commission does for national government.
Right. Let's say from CSO Wamalwa, on that note, of course, similar, that's also about the intercounties.
The transfers and the county public service. But I think what we have is a new constitution. Once we promulgated it in 2010, I would say it's one of the biggest experiments we have had as a country. And for the last 8 years, we have been able to implement it. As we speak, as national government, we have ensured that all the devolved functions are fully devolved, and our county governments are operational fully. But also it's about time we started looking at where the gaps are. Some of the areas that the questioners have raised are really areas of concern. They are areas that we should be able to address going forward. I believe as a Kenyan, a qualified Kenyan, you should be able to serve anywhere in this country, in any county. Because serving in a county, you're actually serving the country. So you should be able to serve anywhere. And when we had this motion about the peace accord in the Senate, the deputy speaker, who is also the senator for Tharaka Nithi, Professor Kindiki, raised a very fundamental issue that with the handshake and coming together of the country, is this country experiencing a constitutional moment? Could it be the time that when the temperatures are down, when the sobriety and calmness, we can start looking at some of these issues? Because some of the issues that we're raising are actually issues that we need to start looking at. And they're issues that could also involve some constitutional changes. And the issue going into the future, we can say after 8 years, are our counties working? Like Professor has asked, can we sustain all these 47 county service boards? Can we, there are issues that we need to look at, and I think it's about time. We want to address them as challenges. Thank you.
And of course, we're talking about issues also. I think one of the things that has been raised as well is, and I think is in the Senate right now, is a county boundaries bill. Yes. Because we know of the ticklish issues about inter-county conflicts because of resources of what you talked about.
Yes.
Do you think also that will be a prime solution? Or I know maybe you're not really privy to that particular bill itself, but in light of the spirit that is trying to express that, yes, we should now look critically at our county boundaries and how critically we can try and, of course, make sure that we have cohesive sort of coexistence within these particular counties. What will be your thoughts on this?
It's an area we need to look at, and ultimately, I believe these counties should be the building blocks for our national cohesion. In fact, they should not be the contributors to the division and the disintegration of the country. Once we succeed within the counties, we can be able to bring them together and bring the country together. So most of the bills that are pending are good, and I think we want to encourage and to support them.
Right. Let's also get some closing remarks from Margaret Kobia as we're moving on. Sis Wamalwa, I think you did mention about, I asked you about the Mwongozo Code and how we can actually also inculcate corporate governance within the counties as well. I'll be remiss if we just close the show and maybe you didn't maybe address that. Do you think we need to incorporate that within the counties?
I think we need to, and we're very pleased that His Excellency the President signed the Mwongozo Code. I think they should go a long way in promoting good governance, good corporate governance, and we need to see how best we can use it. Yes.
Thank you very much. Right, let's hear your closing remarks, Professor.
My closing remarks would be tribalism in Kenya has really hindered kind of socio-economic development, and it's about time Kenyans come together so that we confront with specific steps. Now that we have been trying to implement the Constitution, what are some of the areas that in the process we have some unintended outcome that have supported practice of tribalism. At the same time, I would also appeal to Kenyans that where they are, in their own view, what do they think should be the solution for tribalism in Kenya? Because wherever we are living, we are seeing it. And knowing also tribalism has supported corruption in Kenya, I think is something that we should all be able to come to the forefront, fight it, raise issues, but I think it can't be isolated, because you see, the way we are attacking now is like every institution tries, like TSC distributes stuff, maybe another one will try another perspective. I would appeal for more holistic, participatory approach to really address the issues of tribalism. If we don't, then we see it being a roadblock to development in this country. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Margaret Kobia. Eugene Wamalwa.
Yes, I think I would say since independence, I think Kenyans have lived together peacefully. But what really has divided Kenyans along tribal lines has been our very divisive politics. And I believe if you look at the history of Kenya from 1963 all the way to 1992, I think when we started at the advent of multipartyism, that's when we started getting these very, high-octane politics, negative ethnicity started setting in, and we had tribal clashes, 92, 97. Looking at what happened in 2007, 2008, really at the heart of this is our very divisive politics. And I believe for us to detribalize Kenya, we must detribalize our politics. I believe we're in the right trajectory with the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta, his able deputy William Ruto, with the leadership of Raila Odinga and his NASA team. If we are able to go down that path, and we don't look at the tribes or where you come from, but we look at where we're going and how we can compete on issues, then we will be able to detribalize this country. When we start looking at corruption as an evil, as a cancer that is eating away the fabric of our nation, and no matter who is involved, we will be able to succeed. But if we continue tribalizing corruption, we'll never win the war against corruption. Coming to defend one of our own, no matter how many billions he has looted, we will never succeed as a country. So I think we must look at this. And the third issue we must look at is our education sector. I think this is something that we must allow. Reforms can be very challenging. What we're seeing in terms of reforms is a fundamental move in the education sector to reform a sector and to change a system. I remember when we were migrating from analog to digital, there was serious resistance and it wasn't easy. But we managed as a country to do that. I believe even as we are moving from the 844 system, as we are moving to detribalize our education sector, there are challenges, but we must support the experts who have looked at this and who know what system is best for our children. It's taken years of study, it's taken many reports and many experts, and if we allow the experts to do their work, we detribalize the education sector, we'll be able to equally detribalize this country. But it will take good political goodwill. It will take courageous leaders and leaders rising above their partisan and regional and tribal interests.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.